Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining my presentation, Navigating the New Era of Energy. My name is Joseph McMullen, Senior Portfolio Marketing Manager at AVEVA. We are in a new era of energy. So why do I say that? Internally, there are struggles and shifts abound. The workforce, you have an older workforce that is giving way to younger workers who lack industry experience, but they're technologically advanced. In infrastructure, especially in your IT infrastructure, you have an aging infrastructure. And from an IT perspective, if you look across the oil and gas value chain, it's riddled with legacy point solutions that don't necessarily integrate or work well together. When you think of legacy point solutions, you should be thinking of old code that's written in Fortran, doesn't use wireless Wi-Fi, and of course there's lots of manual processes to make everything work and communicate. That is not as efficient as it should be and as it needs to be going forward. You also have a mindset issue. Right now, historically, the oil and gas industry is very conservative and they don't like adopting unproven technology. But again, you have a younger workforce that is coming in ready to take on new technology. Over the years, in all industries, the pendulum switches between OPEX and CAPEX focus. But in 2020, you had the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced the focus to OPEX, to primarily OPEX. And when that pendulum is going to switch back to CAPEX, I don't know. The younger workforce also has an issue with the reputation that the oil and gas industry has, specifically around sustainability and being environmentally friendly. Let's face it, the oil and gas industry does not have the best reputation there for many good reasons, but also know that it makes it harder for the oil and gas industry to hire new talent because of this reputation. Externally, there are lots of additional factors that create this new era of energy. You have increased competition and globalization that is squeezing everyone and of course leading to mergers and acquisitions. You have technology that is increasing by leaps and bounds, both in the industry and externally. And refiners and oil and gas industry companies are not necessarily sure how best to select the best technology, but also implement it. And if you look outside of the industry, there are ramifications too. You look at battery and power and energy storage, the electronic vehicle market was already set to disrupt supply, but now I've heard of recent advances in battery technology that will make electric vehicles even more stable and run longer, and that could affect demand in the oil and gas industry. In 2020, you had decreased demand globally due to the pandemic, and the IEA says that demand is not going to rise to the level of pre-pandemic demand until 2023. So we still have at least a year and a half, 2 years before that comes around. Also globally, you have the sustainability movement with all sorts of initiatives, the Paris Agreement, and I believe there was another agreement signed this week that is all about climate change and limiting the long-term effects of industry on the climate. Here's the bottom line. In my opinion, the new era of energy comes down to empowering the new workforce, younger workers, and accelerating the shift to lower carbon solutions. With information at your fingertips, artificial intelligence and machine learning that can help you sift through the data and analyze it, cloud deployment that helps you make sure that everyone has access to the same software and the same information, edge computing that reduces the time to act where you need it most at the edge, and industrial software that is paving the way for companies to meet their goals, the goals of their employees, but also the environment and the global community. Don't just take my word for it. Look at this quote from IDC. Oil and gas companies and their suppliers need to have capabilities in place to enable greater resiliency and adaptability as they face disruptive market environments. So yes, this is in the heat of the pandemic, but it holds true regardless of the time frame that you want to talk about it. But now that I don't think anyone disagrees with anything I said in the first slide, all of that is great. And I think we all understand that changes need to be made, but how do you get from point A to point B? How do you get to where you want to go? Now, I may not be the biggest fan of J.R.R. Tolkien, but I love this quote. Not all those who wander are lost. I would argue that if you know you have a problem and you know where you want to go, you just need a little push to help you get there. So here is my advice on how to get to where you want to go. Make sure you know what problem you are solving. Maybe that's a supply chain issue. Maybe that's an operations issue. Maybe that's an optimization issue, predictive maintenance, uptime, downtime, whatever it is. Make sure you have a problem in mind, a big problem that you know you want solved. What is the problematic state now? And what are the ramifications if you do nothing? What is the ideal state that you want to be in? And how does that feel? Who are the players involved? And whose buy-in do you need to get to make that decision and investment? Identify the potential technologies that could help you get to your final state. Identify potential vendors. And when it comes to vendors, I suggest the following. Find a vendor that will partner with you. You don't want a vendor that only has done this a few times. You don't want a vendor that will disappear at the end of the project and not provide support. You don't want a vendor that can't deliver on their promises. What you want is a vendor that will be there throughout the project and wants you to be successful and will support you after the fact. You also want a vendor that can help you with your next project, because that's important. You have to get through one project, but then you're going to start all over again and find out what your next biggest problem is and to find a technology, implement it. Of course, rinse and repeat, just like the back of a shampoo bottle. Find the next biggest problem, use the savings from the first project and roll it in to fund the next. And if you're still unsure where to start, I suggest that you focus on two important things that you want to achieve. And I'll talk about them in the next two slides. The first one is agility. Once you know what you have to do, you have to make sure that you can do it quickly. As conditions change, you want to make sure that you're able to react quickly. That is agility. So this is another quote from Bill Gates. Success today requires the agility and drive to constantly rethink, reinvigorate, react, and reinvent. So Bill Gates has been in the news a lot lately, but no one can argue that he built a large company with Microsoft and it was successful. How quickly you can adapt can be the difference between a profitable shift, a profitable week, a profitable month, or a profitable year. It can also be the difference between being in business and being acquired. It wasn't too long ago that the price of crude was changing very rapidly. Those companies that could take advantage of the volatile pricing were much better off, and they could make more agile decisions, and they were much better off and more profitable because of it. The second key focus area is transparency. You need to be completely transparent on performance of your equipment and your personnel, both on a micro level and on a macro level. So you need to be able to understand what's going on in a specific piece of equipment or a specific individual, and you need to understand how that interacts with the entire process or the entire department. That is the only way that you will be able to improve. When everyone is on the same page, knows how they're helping the bottom line, and understands the company performance, then you will have the ability to continuously improve. This is not just a once a quarter readout on performance. This is a continuous view that everyone has of the entire operation and the performance. Transparency increases credibility and accountability. When you have credibility and you have accountability, there are no surprises and everyone is working towards a common goal. This is probably the only AVEVA focused slide here. And I want to introduce the process digital twin. A digital twin means something different to everyone. But in this case, my definition is a single model focused on driving value and agile response to support an experienced staff to run a plant safely and optimally. So there are a couple key phrases in there that I want to discuss. The first one is safely. You always put in constraints to make sure that you are not only operating on spec and delivering contractual obligations, but you're within your safety zone to make sure that you're operating effectively. Optimally, that means that you're making as much profit as possible. It's a single model. Yes, you may have different models for different pieces of equipment, but they all come back to a single model. But they drive value and agility. So that is the key. So whether you're talking about debottlenecking your process or implementing advanced process control or doing closed loop optimization or implementing LP vectors, wherever it is, your process digital twin will allow you to do that. It will allow you to simultaneously create process and energy optimization that's focused on overall profitability. It'll provide you a rapid response to changes in process and environmental conditions. And it will reconcile your mass and energy balance. This enables you to do performance monitoring, to make sure that you're looking at your process to make sure that it's as effective as possible, as profitable as possible. And last, it's a consistent model for all processes and project engineering activities. So at AVEVA, we like to call it a single version of the truth. So you can go in and you can look at that model and find out exactly what's going on, what the values are, what they should be, and go from there. So the process digital twin is one step in giving you agility and transparency, because everyone will be able to see this information and everyone will be able to make better decisions faster because of your process digital twin. Now, you're probably wondering, this is all great information. Thank you, Joe. Love it. But where do I start? And the trick is, not every oil and gas company, whether you're upstream, midstream, or downstream, will have the same start line or the same finish line. So it's kind of a tricky question. But if I can offer you one piece of advice, it would be to, and this will apply to all oil and gas industry companies, upstream, midstream, or downstream, don't start with technology. Yes, I know I work for AVEVA. I know I work for a technology vendor, but don't start with technology. If you want to be successful in implementing technology, don't start with technology. First thing to do is to look internally at your process and identify problematic processes or areas that need to be improved. There's a Chinese proverb that says a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So think of your journey as 1,000 miles to get to be completely optimal, to be operationally excellent, to be as profitable as possible. That is your journey of 1,000 miles. But your single step, your first step, should be identifying where you need to improve, where you want to improve, and then finding out who the stakeholders are, finding out what needs to happen next. But don't start anything. Don't even talk about technology until you know what you want to fix. If you simply identify and find a cool technology that's trendy and you apply it within your organization, you're likely to fail. You're not even sure what your objectives are, but you're likely to fail. It's going to be a waste of money. Find a problem and then find the technology to fix it. So in summary, I just want to highlight Agility and transparency are the two factors that you need to focus on in your journey. It's navigating the new era of energy. Your process should always start with looking inwards and finding out what your biggest problem is, determining what your final state will be. If everything worked great, how would everything work? That is your ideal state. Identify a technology that can help. Identify a vendor that provides that technology that will partner with you. And remember, I talked about it earlier. You want a partner. You don't want someone that's just gonna in there to make money. You want someone that's in there not only to make money, but in there to make their clients successful, because you want to be successful. And then use that same format over and over and again, using your savings from the previous project to fund your next project. That's how you will continuously improve. And that's the only way you're going to navigate the new era of energy. If you're still confused, ask for help. I've talked to many customers lately, and a lot of them say they start with industry analysts like ARC Advisory Group, IDC, or Gartner. So I definitely recommend reaching out to any of them. They are a great place to start. But a lot of different vendors have a lot of great information on their websites. They put out white papers and webinars. Make sure you do your research on what's actually available. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. This is my email address, joseph.mcmullen@aveva.com. If you have any questions, reach out to me, drop me an email. I also put up my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to connect with me. I'd appreciate it. I love LinkedIn. I love interacting with customers and friends and connections. And lastly, I have a link. This is a white paper that we put together. So the link goes to an interactive white paper page where you get lots of facts and figures, but you can also download this long form white paper that I wrote, essentially how digital agility forges digital resilience. So this is everything that you might want to know on where you can start. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and I'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. We haven't got much time because as per usual, we're running quite tight on time, but I like that so much. I just wanted to ask something of you. I did like what you said about if you're looking about implementing technology, do not start with technology. I think that was great because it shows you what you said there was echoed by so many people on this event. You know, people, and Vasi mentioned it on the previous panel, it's not a shiny new toy. It's something that you've got to start from the bottom up, not from the top down. And I think that's a very good point. One question I wanted to ask you, where do you see, from your perspective, where do you see the biggest opportunity in the entire oil and gas value chain?
Thank you, Adam. Great question. So where I see the biggest value right now is the value chain itself. When you talk about, sourcing and trading and getting the oil into your refinery, producing it, operating, blending, all that stuff. Right now, it's a set of not integrated. They're separate point solutions right now, and they don't necessarily talk to each other. They require manual processes for data transfer. And what that does is that throws up silos. So you have your traders and planners, and they're operating on their own separate KPIs. And you have your operations, and they're operating on their own separate KPIs. And you have your optimization engineers that are operating on their own set of KPIs. No one's looking at the entire company's goals. If you can integrate those completely in one solution and get everyone talking to each other, everyone on the same page, what you have is the ability to have everyone look at the entire company's KPIs. You have someone, whether you're in trading or operations, you're looking to further the company's values and the company's KPIs and profitability, and you're not just worried about your own specific area. So that is one of the things that I think the digital twin provides us, is able to break down silos and talk to each other across the entire refining or oil and gas value chain so that you can do the best for your company.
That's a very good answer. I want to ask you one more because I feel I need to ask you, and I want to ask you, where do you see the biggest opportunity for the process, let's say for the process digital twin in refining?
So right now, I'd say it's on decision making. So if you
Mm.
asked me this maybe 6 months ago, I would have said on the supply chain, right? The supply
Mm.
chain, the crude prices was so volatile. If you could make your
Yeah.
decisions faster on purchasing, you would be much better off. But I think that's leveled off. Right now, it's all about operational efficiency. So right now, I would say the biggest area for expertise right now is probably in blending and making sure that you can go out and you can optimize your operations and minimize your rework or reruns. So making sure that you're all on point and you're optimizing based on current market conditions, whether that's your prices that you're getting for your products or your utility prices that you're paying to process everything.